the intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey everybody, welcome back to another Star Trek Fleet Command video where today we're going to help you with something that a lot of players end up asking me. In fact, we're having a great time here on server 31. Shout out to them for being generous host here during incursions. But a lot of this comes up, especially during PvP style events like incursions, where what is power? Like, what does it mean? Is it relevant? Does it matter? Answer is yes and no. The answer, for example, for player power, how do you calculate it? What does this serve any purpose? And should you care about it? And again, the answer is yes and no at the same time. In fact, I'm very proud that I'm working on it. And y'all know that I set goals for mine. Here, for example, here is server 20s, all the rank 50s, but I am currently ranked 5 of the level 50s on my server. And that's just, a cool thing that you can use to compare, one, to see where you are amongst, those similar, which can give you an idea of whether you're ready to upgrade or not. And beyond that, it also gives you that idea of, okay, how strong are you? But how does that translate in game? Well, to calculate this is actually a lot of variables. And just to be completely honest with you, even if you talk to all the extreme nerds like myself or Glare or Jules or John Connor or Light Bull or any of those folks, Tolstoy, I'm just naming off random folks who are huge nerds about this game, Hugo, it's very difficult to calculate. Here's why. Because there are kind of like things that get blended in. Y'all know the basics though. For example, if you go to your buildings, take a dock for example, we know that it's going to add this amount of power to our station, right? And adding up all the buildings and all the research all have individual things that they will increase. But it's more than just research and buildings that go into your power. So if I click a combat, just for example, and just see that, piercing shots, we know that that's giving my total power 7,000. And then obviously newer things or later things down the tree will give even more, with this one giving 100,000. So as we look at that, power is a concept that is great as a reference point to find out where you are as a player. But is it a good reference point to find out where you are in terms of, can I beat a hostile? And that's where it gets tricky. And honestly, the answer flips from being yes, power is important, to no, it's not. Let me give you a visual example. And I do want to point out real quickly, this was an intended thing. So shout out to Rye for helping me with this. Rye has a base defense crew because we are doing this during incursions. So of course they had a base defense crew, but we're talking about a Corvus that is 3 times stronger than my Tribune. Yet with a crewed out PvP crew with Giorgio, heroic Honor Guard Wharf, Honor Guard Wharf, he's heroic to me, and Carol Freeman, plus some of below deck officers, you see that I win, and I win with 40% hull left, even though that's a 3 times stronger ship. And honestly, there are ways to even do that better. That's a 5-star ship losing to a 4-star ship, and there are far grander examples than this. I just wanted to give Server 31 a shout out again for being generous hosts. I do appreciate how amazing the different communities of this game are. So as you can see here, power in terms of as a concept clearly doesn't matter, because sure, if everybody has the same crews, the same research, the same everything, power should matter. But how often does that actually happen? How often do you run across as a level 50 another 128 million power who got there exactly like you did? Now, that doesn't mean, again, that power isn't important. And I do want to stress that the answer is both yes and no. I love it as a measuring tool. For example, let's talk about our ships. I love my pylum, and I talk about my pylum all the time. How is that number up there calculated? How is 87.6 million calculated? Well, the basics of how you calculate power in ships is pretty simple, I would say, but getting to that number is not so simple. Here is the Scopely math of ship power calculations. You're going to take attack rating, defense rating, and health rating and add those all together, which is simple until you actually go to get your attack rating, defense rating, and health rating, which attack rating is going to be your total damage per round plus 0.5 multiplied by your total armor piercing, shield piercing, and accuracy. Those are all your piercing stats. And then you have all your mitigation stats right here for your defensive rating. And then your hull rating is your shield health and your hull health. But how do you get to those? Well, there's a crap ton of research, and there's artifacts, and there's all these things that contribute to overall power. And the key is that different things contribute to that. For example, I have a forbidden tech here called the Metreon Cascade that gives me a 1,650% hull bonus. That's a massive hull bonus. But at the same time, somebody with a PvP specific FT, for example, one of these down here, could obliterate me. Let's say somebody had the time crystal on a Klingon ship and they had it, let's just say they had it tier 5. We'll knock this down to tier 5. They're getting a 1300 bonus, but also an 800 bonus against players to their damage. So you're getting those things, and some researches only apply in certain situations. Combat PvP researches clearly only apply in PvP, whereas we also know that there are base researches, like things that happen when you're in your base, and you'll notice my ship is 87 million power, and then I take it out, and now it's down to 86. It lost 1 million. That's due to researches that only apply in certain situations, like the base. And I will acknowledge very clearly here in the beginning, this is a confusing concept, which is why we try to keep it simple. Does power matter? Yes and no. Power is a tremendous tool to compare where you are as a player, to know if you're accomplishing goals and reaching milestones that everybody else is. And there are tools that we use to do that with. I mean, we've seen STFC.wtf. If you've not before, I will put it on the screen here in a second. But STFC.wtf is a place where we can go to evaluate our power, comparing it to others around the galaxy. So I know that this is page 2 of all of the level 50s, and I'm on page 2. I'm ranked about 125 out of a total of about 2,600 level 50 players. So I'm doing pretty well, right? I'm in the top percentage of them, but I'm not at the very top. But you did see that if I sort it by server, if I go to server 20, well, that's where, I gotta reset myself. But if I sort it to server 20, and then I say, all right, level 50s only in my descriptor, then you'll see again, this is where you'll find me being ranked 5 amongst it, but still 17 million power behind Witch. Shout out to Witch over at Feds. And again, things can really separate you where you see free to play versus spenders. For example, to get to 140 million plus power, you're going to probably have purchased a few primes. None of that is meant to obviously have shamed Witch in any way, just simply pointing out the fact that various things will greatly increase your power and greatly increase how relevant you are in the game, which is also the same reason as to why you can't use power as an evaluator of whether you will win or lose a combat situation. Q's trials are a fantastic example. Can't pull it up because I forgot I'm on section 31's server, but Q's trials are a great example where you can punch way above your level with certain officer loadouts like the Strange New World crew, for example, and having things like Q and Belana Torres below decks. And I've talked about running crews like this for isolytic damage, which is another variable that we've talked about in the past, and how that can be a tremendous boost to the overall power of your game. Remember, calculating isolytic damage is another thing that is like well, how do you do it? Well, I actually made a graphic over at Scopely specifically for that I could put on the screen, but this doesn't even include isolytic cascade. And this is the trouble with making YouTube videos like this, where I want to keep it short form. It's actually funny. I was on the Star Trek Fleet Command Reddit, the official Reddit. They're talking about, hey, Rav's making these 12-minute long-winded videos when he could have just said what he said in, a quarter of the time. Well, the answer is simple. Does power matter? Yes and no. It's a great reference tool, but it is not something that you can use to determine whether you can win a situation. That is where you have to start learning the finer points of the game, or at least, if not the finer points, the crewing and research importance points. It's why I made a video about the Metreon Cascade and the value it has in hostile grinding, whether that's doing wave battles, queues, silent hostiles, Gorn, regular FKR grinding, or whatever. It's about knowing what works in specific situations, because this forbidden technology is useless to an extent in PvP. The only thing I'm getting from it is the hull bonus, but I'm not getting that damage against hostiles 1500%, which does matter because when you remember, if you are doing calculations for, say, critical damage, well, you need to increase your base damage, which then is going to get heavily multiplied by criticals. Again, these are all these different graphics that we'll come up with, like, how do you calculate things? How do you get to certain damage? Remember, hull breach gives you a massive damage boost, and if you can boost your damage before that, and then critical, and then hull breach, again, another graphic we made right here with another formula, you can have success. So when you're looking at power in the game and calculating it, know that growing your ships organically, upgrading your buildings, doing your research is going to allow you to do that. And use power as a measuring tool. Should you level up to, say, level 51 if you're only 100 million power? Or you say, I'm using that as an example because I'm level 50. So let's say another player out there is watching and they're level 50, but they're only about 100 million power. Well, you would not want to go up to level 51 yet. You're not ready for 5-star simply by a glance at that. Simply looking nothing but power, I can tell your research is not where it needs to be, and likely your ships as well. In fact, amongst all of the level, 50 players, that 100 million would put you somewhere in the, I don't know, like 1,000, 1,200 range, somewhere in the middle. And it's still probably arguably not good enough. I mean, if you're not even in the top, 25%, are you really being the best you can be? But at the same time, just because I'm 128 power doesn't mean I'm immediately better than somebody else who's also 128 million power, because they could have focused into a, say, PvP forbidden technology and I didn't, and I could still lose the battle. So crewing is key to knowing. That's why power doesn't necessarily matter in your PvE or your PvP battle, but it is a great reference tool to know, am I doing enough? Like, am I growing enough? Am I getting strong for my level? And then using that as a measuring tool. When it comes to things like winning a PvP fight or winning a hostile PvE, a big silent hostile or Gorn that require isolated only damage, that's why we have other videos. So hopefully this video answers that question for you, even though I'm not going into the finer details of every little point about damage overall. Power is a fantastic reference tool, as you can see here, and it's one of the reasons that I use it to gauge of whether or not I'm ready to level up. I can use it to compare to my peers and know, hey, I am reaching milestones enough to justify leveling up. And also knowing that at the same time, power is not a tell-all, because you can run into situations like this where you catch somebody like Rye, where he is maybe crewed out for speed. There's another fight that I had on this same server against a pylon that was much smaller, admittedly, but he ran a speed crew and I easily defeated him. And this is, by the way, not to in any way shame Softly. Shout out to Killing Them Softly. Really cool dude. Enjoyed having some banter with you in the global chat. But he's running a speed crew. He's got no chance versus a pure PvP crew. And yes, his pylon is smaller, but his pylon could be 100 million. He could have a maxed out pylon and he would still lose this match every single time because of crewing, regardless of power situations. And the flip is also true. If I were to load out a, non-combatant or a speed crew in here and he came out with Interceptor Strike Team, he's probably going to destroy my Tribune and make me look silly. Power is a fantastic reference tool, but never use it to determine whether you are going to win a match. That's why we need the finer points of crewing and research, hidden techs, artifacts, etc. And that's why I've got tons of videos to make. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me on YouTube in the comment section down below, or, be one of those guys who hits me up on Discord, one of those gals who comes to the Twitch chat and looks at this math live when we go for our long form content, where we'll do 2-hour streams and go through the finer minutia of this game. Live long and plunder. Stay safe with their Space Cowboys. Deuce is asking me. Thank you so much for watching the channel, as all of you do. Make sure you leave a like if you haven't already, because it does help out the channel, and comment down below. Even if you're just saying hi, I'll say hi back to you. And also, yeah, I'm on the Reddit lately. If y'all didn't know, I'm there. So anyway, we'll see you later. Bye.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.